Where should we begin?
Well, why don't you say a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Shana, and I worked as a freelance reporter for a number of years. I also worked as a technical writer. I majored in English literature and communications. And I'm currently working on a near future sci fi kind of cyberpunk novel based a lot on space and what's going on in that area and space colonization and all that exciting futuristic stuff.
So how did you figure out that you wanted to be a writer?
Had well, um, Pretty young. When I was in fifth, my mother is a writer. She writes plays and novels. Actually, more like self-help books. She doesn't really write novels. She writes plays and self-help books. And I was just kind of always raised in a creative environment. And when I was in fifth grade, I had a really great teacher, and she kind of encouraged me. And we wrote an essay, and I just remember she read it to the class, and I had to leave the room because I was so embarrassed that I felt like I was like revealing a part of my inner world or my soul. And I felt like, wow, this is something that's really important to me. And I knew that that was my path to express myself, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. So in fifth grade, you had a teacher that was able to connect with you.
Yes, and I had a couple of rough teachers in like the grades before that, where I didn't like school, and I felt like they were tough on me. I had kind of parents that were kind of like ex hippies and a bit on the permissive side. And when I went to school and there was the discipline and the structure, which is actually something that I realize now that I need, but it was difficult for me. So I was very disillusioned with school. And then I had this teacher, Ms. Bowen, Elizabeth Bowen, which is actually the name of a writer, which I recently found out. And she just made me realize that school can be something that I can enjoy and that I can get a lot out of, and that there are good teachers out there that will nurture your creativity and your uniqueness.
Do you think she connected specifically with you, or she was just that type of teacher that connected with like most of her students?
I think she was a good teacher, but I think we sort of had a special bond. She was she was blonde, and she had wore red lipstick, and I don't know, maybe I saw something of the woman that I would become. She was kind of an independent, free spirited woman, and I think we had a special connection.
I mean, maybe that argues for the case of having a wide variety of teachers with a wide variety of kind of approaches so that at least every student has a person that potentially can connect with them.
Definitely. I still think about her when someone asks who was my favorite teacher, and it's always Ms. Bowen.
And did you kind of see yourself through middle school
And
and then high school as becoming a writer?
well, I also won the dictionary award when I was in, I think it was 11th or 12th grade. Oh no, sixth grade, I won the dictionary award, where it was like who was best in reading. And I remember winning this dictionary out of everybody who was in the grade. I won it, so that was more confirmation that this was something that I was good at. And then also in 11th or 12th grade, I also won excellency in creative writing for the grade. So I got a lot of external validation, and I also got a lot of intrinsic reward from writing.
Um, was there ever a moment where you thought, writing's a great hobby, but it'll never be a career?
You know, I guess I've always been a bit idealistic. So I think I was maybe a little bit too hopeful that, oh, I'll just write and I'll write a book and it'll be a bestseller. And, so I think I was, and I think my mother being a writer encouraged that. She's like, oh, you'll write the great American novel, of course. But as I got older, I started to realize that maybe I needed to have something a little more practical. And that's when I went back to school for professional communications. And so I could maybe work in public relations, which can be a little more lucrative than journalism or writing for a lot of people. but I've always been kind of an idealist. So um yeah, I'm still hopeful that whatever I do, it's going to involve writing, because that's been, I've always, anything I've made money from has always involved writing in some way, whether it was technical writing or journalism.
Um, what are some authors who, like, what is the oldest author, or
Hmm.
that you really admire?
What do you mean the oldest?
Um, I mean, like somebody from the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, like,
Um, let's see. Well, I was reading some Christopher Marlowe, who was, uh, I believe it was the 1600s. He was, I believe, a contemporary with Shakespeare. I'd have to check on that, but I was reading his play Faust last night, so that's pretty old, and I'm enjoying that. I'm in the middle of reading that. I like to read a lot of the Greek philosophers, so I go way back. I actually really appreciate the classics, maybe even more than what's being written today.
I think one benefit about reading older authors is only things that were valued through the time survived. Like there's a
Yes,
natural filter. Whereas
that's so
today,
true.
everything's being thrown at you, and it just,
Absolutely. I feel like I should probably read more contemporary fiction and writing, because maybe that'll, I'll see what's selling now. But I seem to always be drawn to the classics, whether it's 1970 and or 1870 or further back.
I mean, I imagine it's a challenge as a writer to try to think of things to write that will pay the bills, and then
Hmm.
things to write that are have eternal value.
Yes,
Those things
that
may not line up.
that push pull of commercial versus artistic, and maybe trying to find that sweet spot where it's a commercial success and also has artistic value. I think that is the holy grail of art, in a lot of ways.
So, as you mentioned about contemporary authors, are there any that really stand out to you that you really like?
That are writing today.
Hmm.
I like, believe it or not, a lot of people think he's not a good writer, but I like Dan Brown, the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, The Lost Symbol, because I really like mythology, and I think that so much research goes into his writing, and they're fun, they're page turners, and they're smart page turners. So that's who comes to mind.
I guess just looking at the movies, American Treasure would be kind of along the same genre
Hmm.
almost.
National Treasure, I think,
National Treasure. Okay, yeah.
with Nicolas Cage.
Uh-huh,
I
exactly.
actually didn't see that, but I probably should, because it's along the same vein of like Angels and Demons, right? Or the Da Vinci Code.
Exactly. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
almost put them right next to each other.
I'll have to see. I'll have to check that out.
Any foreign authors you really like? Or
I've been reading,
non-English, I guess.
sure. I've been reading Borges. He has some very interesting modernism. His writing is just, it's sort of like surreal, and he takes from authors from the past, and there's a lot of quotes in his own writing, and he's just, I feel like he is really timeless. I don't know if you're familiar with Borges.
No, one thing that this project has been um, a continuous education project for me. There's like so much that I don't know, and as I
Mhm.
talk to people and we have conversations that are more than "How are you doing?" Fine. There's so
Yeah,
much to learn.
right, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, right? Like
Indeed.
Dorothy Parker is one of my favorite writers, and she said the cure for boredom is curiosity, and there is no cure for curiosity. And that's so true, because I've spent a lot of time at home, of course, during the past year, and just my endless curiosity to read and learn about different things has really kept me occupied. So I'm really grateful for that I have that curiosity.
Could you talk a little bit about how you develop your craft? Like, how do you continuously push yourself to become a better writer, and what do you consider to be a better writer?
Well, actually, for a long time, I feel like for a while, I feel like I kind of maybe lost my way a little bit, where I was working full time for a petrochemical company, doing technical writing. And, I learned a lot about the technical side of things. And, but I feel like this past year where I haven't been working in an office, I've had a lot of time to really get back to my creative writing. And I think I've always been creative and I have ideas, but where I struggle is the discipline and the follow through and sitting down every day and saying, I'm going to write 1,000 words a day, whether you feel inspired or not. So I think it's developing that discipline to go along with the creativity that is something that I'm working on.
Do you
I don't know if
find
that
that?
answers the question. What was the question again?
Oh, well, it was about how do you develop your craft? Actually, I mean, do you have like an ideal of what really good writing is? And how do you kind of progress your own writing towards that ideal?
I think really good. I think that's really subjective, but I think it's something that's authentic. I think it's when you find your own unique voice. You can pay homage to what's inspired you and what's come before you, and your contemporaries. But I think it's when you write something, maybe something you're a little scared to write because it's so revealing. But it's personal, but it's also universal. So it's authentic and it's personal, and it also somehow reaches into the archetypal. I think maybe that can explain part of what makes good writing. But I think that's also something kind of intangible that you know it when you feel it, and it makes you feel something, and when it makes you feel less alone because it's like, wow, someone else felt the same way I do.
And you mentioned disciplines where you see the real growth, the ability to just sit down and write on demand and,
Mhm.
write at time intervals. Do you find some type of conflict between creativity and discipline?
I think a lot of times people think that, if you follow, if I've been also learning a lot about story structure and the history of story and the hero's journey. And I think a lot of times people think that if they learn that, their work will become formulaic. But I think that it goes in tandem. It's like to borrow from Greek mythology, it's like the Dionysian, the wild and the free, balanced with the Apollo, which was discipline and order. So I think it's the balance of Dionysus and Apollo. I like to think of it's the chaos and the order, and when you can bring those together, that's when the true genius a lot of times comes through. I think that discipline can free you because it's like once you have a template, then you don't have to worry about that. And it's like sometimes limitation can actually be freeing in a paradoxical way.
Absolutely. Occasionally I'm trying to tweet something and it goes over the limit. And I'm like, man, I got to make it shorter. And then I realized that what I ended up with is actually much more
Yeah,
powerful and useful than what I was going to write.
absolutely. I can be a little verbose, in my writing. So it really has taught me to be concise, Twitter. Yeah, and it is true that sometimes limitation, cannot, instead of being a hindrance, it can actually be quite the opposite.
Um, I find, I do a bit of computer programming and it's very kind of, you know, create variable X, ask user what X should be, add
Hmm.
X to 2, like this. And then I find my emails are like, it was nice to meet you. I would like to learn more about your subject. Let's meet again. It's like kind of kind of like that. So about your cyberpunk science fiction
Yeah.
novel, anything you could share about that?
Well, I really haven't been talking too much about. It's another thing. I feel like sometimes when you talk about something before it's done, sometimes I don't know. I feel like it kind of jinxes it, or I think there was like a study done where if you tell someone you're going to do something, you get that reward, like you've already done it, and then sometimes you
Right.
never do it. And also sometimes you'll tell someone something and maybe they won't get it, and you'll get a bad reaction. And I don't want any of that to influence me right now, because right now I have the whole story outlined. So I know the whole story. And I'm really trying to do it in a very structured way, which is different for me because it's such a complex story with so many moving parts. So it's based on, this past year, it was very, obviously challenging time for everybody, but there were also a lot of gifts for a lot of people too, if we're being honest, because we got to slow down and think about what's really important in life. And one of the things that brought me a lot of joy over 2020 was watching the shuttle launches, SpaceX shuttle launches. And I felt like it gave me a lot of hope for the future when it didn't feel like the future was very hopeful. And that
Yeah.
kind of got the wheels in my head turning about this story that came to me.
Talking about SpaceX and human space exploration and things like that. When did you find out that NASA is planning to send people back to the moon in 2024?
Well, I think I've known that for quite a while, because I've been following pretty closely because of, my own interests and also my writing project. So I need to know these things. I don't remember when I knew exactly. I actually applied to the Dear Moon, where they were going to send like 8 creative people to go past the moon. And I wrote a little essay and I didn't hear back. I mean, it's, kind of a long shot. But they're doing that. And I think before that, I found out about Artemis, and the name immediately struck me because, being into mythology, that is Apollo's twin sister. And the Apollo mission brought us to the moon, first man on the moon in 1969. So this is kind of like the feminine counterpart, and to be putting the first woman on the moon for the Artemis mission just seems like a really apt title, and they're also going to put the first person of color on the moon. And I think that's great because I think representation is really important. And, a lot of people think that space is just for rich billionaire white men, and space is for everybody.
But it's the white billionaire white men that get to go.
But that's changing though. The Dear Moon is a Japanese man, was actually paying for, he's a billionaire, but he was paying for 8 creative artistic people to go to the moon. And if you look at who's going to the Artemis mission, I think it's like 18 people, and there's like 9 women and several people of color, and all different backgrounds. So I think that I really like the inclusiveness of that, because it shows people that they can get involved in space too, whether it's watching or learning about it. Not only space, but STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, that it's women can get involved, and just seeing that, and people of color, and just seeing the representation, I think, is important.
Um, uh, are you familiar with the Inspiration 4 mission?
Yes, I am. They're also sending, I think it's like 4 civilians. I think they were trying to find healthcare workers. I don't know as much about that one, but I did hear about it.
Yeah, they had like special names for each of the 4 seats. One was like leadership, and one was hope, and one was generosity, and one was prosperity.
I
And
love it. Yeah.
the leadership one was the billionaire that's paying for the whole trip.
Right.
And then the hope one is actually a childhood cancer survivor
Oh, right.
who actually had part of her knee, I think, replaced. And she's
That's
a
so great.
physician's assistant at St. Jude's, and she's going. So that's really
And
neat.
I think it was also going to be charitable, right? They were raising money for St. Jude. So I love that some people think that it's just about billionaires flexing who has the biggest rocket, and, but to find that you can actually do something charitable for Earth with space, and all the technology that is developed for space travel, and the experiments that are done in space. People think, oh, why are we going to space when there's so many problems on Earth? But it's not one or the other. What we do in space is going to help Earth.
Um, that's a good point. And I've talked to lots of people who've kind of make that
Yeah,
kind of argument that why are we spending money on space
sure.
when we have problems here on Earth? But whenever you look at the Earth, what problems do you see that we have?
What problems do I? Well, I mean, where do you begin? Obviously, people are thinking about the wealth inequality, and worrying about the climate and pollution. um, all that kind of stuff, and inequalities in all different ways. Um, just for a start, things that have been really, at the fore of the public consciousness lately.
Can we talk about the wealth inequality? I've not explored that topic with anybody before. I'm kind of interested to get some other views on it. I mean, how important is it that, uh, we have people that have hundreds of billions of dollars at their
Right.
disposal, and we have other people that are probably in, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars in debt. Um,
Sure.
and we have people who, from the moment they're born, every aspect of their life is planned for and prepared for, and they really don't have to expend any energy or intelligence to be well off. And then you have other really, really capable people who, because of just where they happen to be born, the family they were born into, the situation, uh, their future is really limited. And it just seems like a huge, huge problem. And not
Yes.
problem,
Mhm.
but I guess it seems like that inequality is something that maybe the solution's worse than the cure and
Yes,
such.
I totally agree. I mean, the thing is, life it's not fair. This world, it's never going to be, fair. Everybody has different advantages and disadvantages, and I mean, that's just kind of the human condition. I mean, we can, um like you said, the cure, we can't have the cure worse than the condition and the problem. I think, we need to make strides to, give opportunities to people, and people who maybe weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth, to, give them the opportunity to rise, if they're, with their abilities, and to give everybody a chance, no matter where you start. I think that's that's the American dream, and I still believe in the American dream. You know that you can rise from the, the most humble beginnings, and become something successful, and then
I,
also we can help the people that maybe can't do that because of, health issues, or whatever, that we help those who, need help.
and whenever you look at Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, two arguably the most wealthy people in the world,
Mhm.
they both really did have humble beginnings. Jeff.
Well, I think that's a little debatable about Elon, and I love Elon Musk. He is my hero, but I don't know if humble beginnings is the right word. For South Africa, I think they were pretty well off. Although I don't think he took a lot of money from his father, and he kind of made his own way. But I think that definitely helped a little bit. Although I think someone like Elon probably could have been born anywhere, and done something great. I mean, because look at him. I mean, but most people aren't Elon Musk.
Yeah, and he did have a bit of, both of them had a bit of luck, kind of being in the early stages of the career, but farther enough along right as the internet was really taking off.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yes, right. The right place at the right time. And then a lot of work. You know, I feel like it's it's not. I don't like the demonizing of the billionaires, especially ones like Elon, who, and even Jeff Bezos. When we're in a pandemic, who's not grateful for Amazon? You know?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Between Amazon and Starlink and, residential solar power, I, you can live in the middle of nowhere and still be connected and get
Right.
everything you need almost.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But at the same token, when SpaceX decides they want to move into Boca Chica, and you know, you had like these retirees there that were just looking to kind of stay there
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of their life and enjoy the place, and now they have to go someplace else. And,
Yeah, I know that there's been some backlash and protest about Boca Chica, and I know Elon wants to start kind of his own, I guess, city or town, Starbase, Texas. And I guess, with life, there's always going to be some good and bad, and you just hope that the good outweighs the bad. And I don't know if people are being asked to leave their homes because of, I don't really know exactly the situation there. I'm sure you know more about it. Or people being, bought out of their homes because of this. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, all of them have been offers made on their houses, and
And I'm sure
uh,
very generous offers too, although, that maybe doesn't make up for it if you don't want to leave your home.
yeah, it's a challenge, and it's not a new challenge, right? I mean, building a road, or building a pipeline, or
Right.
building, some
Exactly.
public works project. So it's definitely not new.
But I think what Elon is doing is really important. It's maybe one of the most important things to preserve the light of consciousness, to be a multi-planetary species. So I think his goal is really noble and genuine. He's not someone who is motivated by greed or taking advantage of people. He has this vision to preserve the light of consciousness and to give people something to be hopeful for, to someday be among the stars. He's
Yeah,
a real visionary. He's really inspired me.
I'm really inspired by him too. I went to Boca Chica just for spring break, actually. I was
Oh
hoping to
yeah,
see the
that must have been fun.
SN11, a test flight, but it got delayed. And come to find out, even if I had stayed there, you couldn't see anything anyway because they did it in fog. But that's a different story.
Oh, I think I saw that one where you couldn't see anything,
Couldn't
right?
see anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd have been really
Oh,
sad to have stayed to see that. Um,
yeah, that's too bad.
uh, so I'm really excited about all of that too. Um, but I think, one of the values that we get out of is not necessarily just, preserving the light of consciousness, but also having to sort of re-challenge and recreate every aspect of life. I think will further enrich the human condition,
You mean colonizing Mars?
right? And just the struggles that
Yeah.
those people have to go through, and it's
Mm-hmm.
no longer about we used to do it this way because
Mm-hmm.
you're really struggling to figure out how to make it work, and
Yeah.
it kind of
That's one
opens
of
up
the things I
everything.
love. It's a chance not to forget about Earth, but to, do it maybe a different way somewhere else that could maybe inspire Earth, like, oh, they're doing something different and it seems to be working there. It's a chance to kind of start over, in some ways, while also, helping Earth.
And so coming back to the moon, not everybody is excited about us going back to the moon in
Mm.
2024. It was really comforting to see that this wasn't going to be one of those huge transitional things between administrations.
Yeah, that's one thing I like, that it's a bipartisan thing. I mean, with the space community, the SpaceX community, I one thing I love about it is that some voted for one person, some voted for another person, but there isn't that, bickering and divisiveness, because everybody is just united in their love of space and hope for the future. And I hope that it's something in this really divisive time that can unite people. And I know that people will, see things differently on everything. But yeah, I was a little bit worried that things would maybe, plans would be stalled. But I'm excited that, this current administration is also continuing with the mission to get to the moon and Mars.
What do you think we would get out of it that would make it worth it for the everyday citizen?
To go to the moon.
Hmm.
Um, well, I'm sure that, technology will be developed, and a lot of times they will be doing experiments, but also just seeing it. I think it's inspiring. I think I'm inspired by it. Whenever I feel, oh, I can't do this, it's like, well, if they can colonize Mars or get to the moon, then I can, finish this chapter or whatever it is. And I think, seeing that they're a diverse group of astronauts, I think it'll inspire young people, or anybody, to want to get involved in science and technology and engineering. So I think it's that inspiration and that pioneering spirit of, just pushing the limits.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I feel like the 2020s are going to be to space exploration what the 1990s were to the internet and computers.
Yes.
Uh, I think in 1990 you would have an easier time explaining orbital mechanics to somebody than what email and web shopping was.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it's exciting, this new space race, right? It sort of reminds me a lot of, not that I was around in the 60s, but, there's a lot of parallels, with, a country that is, in upheaval and division and, civil rights and then, also going to the moon. So I think that was maybe something that, united generations and people from all walks of life back then. And I hope that it does the same now.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people were hoping us going back to the moon would be that come together moment like Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were on the moon.
Mhm.
But I think we could go to the moon and a lot of people on Earth won't even know it.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's not really, it doesn't really raise up to the same level as it did whenever Neil and Buzz went.
Mm. Well, right now that I mean, it's different. I mean, back then there were like what, four channels, now I mean everyone's in their own little niche and there's hundreds of channels on TV plus the internet, so everybody, but there is a thriving community that is really passionate about space. So I think there's going to be a lot of people very excited and it's one step closer to Mars, which is, something I'm excited about.
Um, Now, if you look back 500 years ago, you have Christopher Columbus coming to North America and then all the development that's taken place since then. Not saying that he precipitated that development, but
Hmm.
just as a marker in time.
Hmm.
Um, if you look forward 500 years from now, especially
Yeah.
considering you're a sci-fi author envisioning these future worlds,
Yeah.
where do you think humanity might get?
You mean in what regard?
Um, well, how about geographically? Where all do you think humanity is in terms of the solar system?
Mm, I'm not sure I understand the question where we are.
Oh, do we have people living on the moon, in
Oh,
orbit, on Mars, on the
oh,
moons of
okay,
Jupiter, the moons of Saturn,
right.
in
Well,
free space?
I see a city on Mars. A base on the moon. Different space stations in low orbit. I see people living in space and on Earth and maybe traveling between. And I think it's going to happen sooner than we think.
Do you think we'll have a generation ship by then that's on its way to another star system?
Yeah, eventually, yeah, I think we're going to find new ways to travel much faster and farther. um yeah, I see us just going further and further, where no man or woman has gone before, like the Star Trek generation.
How about technologies like hibernation, the ability to, you know, kind of pause life and resume it at some point in the future?
Oh, do you mean like freezing yourself after you like cryogenics?
Or even before, how some people, a lot of sci-fi stories have people on these incredibly long trips, or even here on the Earth, going into hibernation for hundreds of years at a time. They get revived and they just pick up
Hmm.
life where they left off.
I think it's possible. I think maybe people will just be uploading their consciousness to Neuralink or something, and getting a whole new body or a cyber body, to get into the cyberpunk.
Uh,
But I think one thing I love about science is that it's like magic. I think it was Arthur C. Clarke that said, any truly advanced science is indistinguishable from magic. So I feel like almost anything is possible, with what we know now, and just thinking about how exponentially we're just advancing technology. I wouldn't be surprised, by that.
but you mentioned about uploading our consciousness or getting upgrades, I think would be the next sort of thought on, tangential to that idea.
Hmm.
Um, Once we're able to sort of manipulate ourselves physically, expand our minds, connect to different things. how do we do it in such a way that we still have a good sense of self and identity?
Well, I think that's one of the things that I'm actually going to be exploring in this book I'm writing. What does it mean to be human? You know, I think that's something that a lot of people are really worried about. But then people worry about all new technological advances. People were afraid of radio, of newspaper, of TV, the internet, and I think it's inevitable. I think that this sort of people worry about this transhumanism, but maybe we can use technology to be more human in a way, or to fully reach our potential. It doesn't have to turn us into machines. It can just sort of help us to fulfill our potential as humanity.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, even things like eating 3 times a day, it's like giving that up. How does that change our own identity? Once we no
Like,
longer
yeah.
need to eat.
Well, you have a lot more free time. I mean, I would miss food. Maybe they'll find a way where you can probably just program like, oh, I want to taste something, and then like your Neuralink that it stimulates that you're eating a chocolate cake or something. Uh, it's coming.
I know you could be snacking all day. It's like,
Right, exactly. No calories, or you could eat something very bland and then like tell your mind will think it's like the most delicious meal.
and now running marathons is a matter of training and developing the mental and physical capability of doing it. I mean, what does that become whenever it's just a matter of you know going to the store and picking out the right set of legs or something?
Right. And I also like think about like with, like a Neuralink, for instance, that you could just get all the knowledge, like I just download it into you. And I wonder what that does if you didn't have to work for it. Like if you didn't have to sit down and force yourself to read a book or learn a craft, if it's just downloaded into you, like does that affect how you use it? Do you still appreciate it, or are you just able to, learn so much more and then do things that never would have been imaginable because it takes so much time to learn anything? So these are all really interesting questions that I'm pondering.
Yeah, I mean, like chess has been a game that's been played for centuries, and there's been lots and lots of kind of games recorded and the outcome of those games, and uh, uh, does it really is it really playing whenever you're just looking up, a game where you win with the same board configuration as what you have right now, and you just kind of follow
Mm,
the steps.
right.
Um,
A lot of questions. We're at this pivotal time of change. I think a lot of people are scared and they just think the worst. And I think we do have to be careful with AI. That it doesn't get into the wrong hands. And but people sometimes always assume the worst. And I think maybe it'd be good to write some sci-fi where the future is cool. Where it's not perfect, but it shows that it's not always going to be dystopian. It's not always the worst case scenario.
I like to take that statement and flip it around and change it into a question. Got to make sure that AI doesn't get into the wrong hands.
Yeah.
Um, what would you consider to be the right hands?
Somebody like Elon Musk, who I think has a real good heart, and someone who doesn't want to take away people's individuality or their choice or control them or turn them into puppets. Someone who wants to make sure that it's democratized so everybody can get it, not just the elite, for starters.
Talking about turning people into puppets. A lot of people's criticism about the governmental reaction to the pandemic has been sort of this um, communal decision as opposed to personal choice. Um,
Mm,
I was wondering how you sort through that, because I mean, I've kind of seen it from both sides, and I mean, how do you decide uh, what's the role of government to protect us versus to inform us and allow for us to essentially have to make the decisions ourselves?
yeah. I mean, I can certainly see both sides too, but for me, I'm actually more of a small government person, and I do err on the side of giving people freedom of choice, and give people the information, give them, let them make their own decisions. So I really am, leery about government overreach, and where they want to control your life and tell you what's best for you. I think people have the right to decide what risks they want to take. There is some, of course, the government does have to, set some limits, but I think there's been a lot of overreach personally. That is kind of setting a bad precedent, in my opinion.
Exactly. I mean, once you've crossed over that line, it's easier to cross over it again for less reasons.
Yeah,
What do
I mean
you
the lockdown is, to me, it was a bad precedent. I mean, I could understand when it was, new and we didn't really know what was going on. But are you there? Hello? Hi.
Yes, still
I don't know
here.
what that was.
Just getting a package delivered. So
Oh, oh,
uh,
okay. I'm like, oh, no, I didn't lose you.
I I was sitting on the porch, so it's like always a difficult. And we have like these little moments where it's like
Yeah,
trying to stay focused, but not ignore people either. So
I
it's
know.
like,
That's what I feel like it's been so politicized though, where people can't even share ideas. I think that that's really dangerous too, that people feel like they can't discuss the pros and cons of things because it's so politicized. And I think that's a problem. And when this lockdown started, I was actually really, really upset about it, really disillusioned. And then I just started to say, well, there's good and bad and everything. And I'm going to use this gift of time and do something productive with it.
yeah, yeah, it is a problem. And I mean, the mortality rate of this was, like 25% or 50%. I mean, that'd be I don't think there'd be any doubts that like the reaction was right.
Yeah,
I think, whenever it starts getting down to like the 1 and 2%, people are like, at what point do we not drive or take airplanes? Because um,
exactly. Right. Everything is a risk. Everything is a risk reward assessment. And this is actually another thing that I'm going to be touching upon in my book, actually. So it was like these things that were going on, the lockdown, the pandemic, space travel, and all these things were like this, brewing in my mind. And I stirred it around, and that's kind of what my story is gonna, kind of involve.
so you signed up for Moon, so I presume you would go to space if you had the chance.
Yeah, I mean it terrifies me, but I would hope that I could overcome that. And yes, I mean, it's kind of my dream to be one of the pioneers to, go to the Mars colony and live there.
You would really go to Mars and not come back?
Well, the thing is, I don't have, like I'm not married. I don't have kids. So I think someone like me would be an ideal person to start over, there.
And what do you think it would be like?
Well, I've listened to a lot of what Elon says. It's not going to be, easy. It's going to be like a pioneer, a pioneering spirit where you go there and you're sort of starting over from, you're starting from nothing. Maybe I wouldn't want to be the first one there because I'm a little high maintenance, but maybe once they set up and they have the first, like, Mars bars and Starbucks or whatever, then maybe I would want to go. I don't know if I want to be one of the first people there. I don't know if I'm cut out for that, but I think it would be amazing because I think there's, part of like the overreach of the government. I feel like Mars could maybe be a place where we could start over, and have freedom in a way.
Well, I mean, I definitely would like to believe that too. But on the other hand, where the very air that you're breathing is like communal property and, kind of like a really sacred thing. I and whenever you have central authorities able to take away that air from you, I mean, how does it not lead to totalitarianism? Just
Hmm.
albeit within inside of that one facility
Are you speaking of Mars now?
of Mars. Yeah.
Because so you're concerned that that could become totalitarian.
I mean, you almost would expect to because I mean, people doing things to like the wall, could potentially be a whole breach and put everybody in jeopardy. So
Mm,
it's uh, I mean, you're literally everybody is. My mom used to say that your freedom to swing your arm goes until they
hmm.
actually hit somebody else. Uh,
Yes, I've heard that.
so the people inside an elevator are distinctly different, have a different level of freedom than the people that are, out in the open field with the next person being miles away.
Hmm.
It seems to me that being in a facility on Mars would be similar to being in that elevator where, um, everything that anyone does has an impact on other people, which would mean that your freedoms would actually be a lot more constrained.
Mm. Well, I have a lot of faith in Elon Musk, and I know that he believes in freedom of the individual. And I think if the right people go there with the right intentions, that there's a chance that it could be something great.
Well, and coming to the US, from like Europe used to be a great filter for people who are willing to, just looking for a chance and all that. But then they have children, those children have children, and before long, uh, you end up with a whole bunch of entitled people.
Mm.
So, how many generations do you think it'll take before that happens on Mars?
Um, well, I'm trying to be optimistic that it could be a place where a lot of the mistakes, a lot of the lessons we learned on Earth, we could take with us to Mars and not make a lot of those same mistakes. Started off on the right foot. A lot of people feel like a lot of America was started off on the wrong foot, and I think it could be a play, and I don't know, there's I don't want to really get into that, but I think it could be a way to just start over, a clean slate, a tabula rasa, to just start over with everything that we've learned, with a pure spirit, and the people that go there, I think it would be adventurous people, it would be people who believe in progress. um so I think that would have a lot to do with what the place would be like, the people that would choose to go there.
Yeah, I think so too. Definitely be um, a crucible experience. Yeah,
Yes,
kind of refining the
right.
essence of.
Maybe I'll just write about it. Maybe I don't have to actually go, but
Well, the great thing about writing about it is you can always come back when you want to.
exactly.
I really appreciate your time. Is there anything you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
I think we covered a lot. This was really fun. Like I said, usually I was on the other end of the interview where I would be asking the questions, so I was a little nervous because this is really new for me, but it was a lot of fun. So thank you
So
so.
any suggestions on things I should do differently or better?
I think you were great. I think it was great. What made you reach out to me? I was surprised.
Well, honestly, I try to reach out to everybody. So I mean, I I think there is so much we can learn from each other, and everybody should be talking to everybody.
Yeah, I think it's great if you talk to people from all walks of life. People get stuck in their echo chambers where they only talk to people who think exactly the way they do. And I think if we talk to each other, and really listened, we'd realize that we have more similarities than differences. And I think that would really serve the world, and make us more peaceful, and not just seeing, oh, they're that us and versus them.
And maybe to learn also that the things that we think are different about us are a result of different experiences and different set of information.
Right, and to maybe appreciate those differences. Like, we don't all have to be alike. We're not all going to be alike.
Yeah, I hope not. That'd be a very boring world.
Exactly. So we should appreciate each other's differences and be understanding of them and respectful of them. So have you found a lot of people are receptive to your request
Um,
for the interview?
I would say most people. I Saturday and Sunday I went up to random people on the street and wherever I happened to be, and Both of the times I had to go and ask multiple people before I could find somebody that would do it. But
Yeah, I did a lot of that as a reporter, going up to people, do you mind being interviewed? And a lot of people like it. Someone wants to listen to me, people like to be heard.
right. I mean, the biggest challenge I think is we're constantly being marketed to and scammed.
They
You
think it's a
know,
scam. Like, what are you trying to sell me? Right. Yeah.
exactly. How are you trying to trick me up? What's
Hmm.
the catch?
Right.
So that's how to get past that is really difficult,
Do you
I think.
find that you have better luck online than you did in person because people can look you up and see that, I looked you up. I was like, oh, this guy is legit. He's got a real project.
Um, I would say it's probably about the same in both. I find it a lot easier to probably interview couples. That seems to be the
Oh yeah.
the best. First of all, they already got you outnumbered.
Right. They
And
have someone who, I guess they feel like they have an ally there, like it's less scary.
exactly. And they both want to look right for the other person, and they have an ally, and that worked out well. I cannot think of a single couple I've asked that said no. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Hmm.
So
Well, what do you plan to do with these interviews? Before I let you go, what are you going to do with them? Just put them on the website?
yeah, I put them all on countdowntothemoon.org unedited. I
Mm-hmm.
do have a person that's going through them a week at a time, putting together kind of like a 5-minute highlight summary.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to make it so that you could have like some type of interface where you could say, I want a video that's 1 to 5 minutes with people you met randomly who are, maybe pro space or anti space or something like that.
Right.
And then comes up like the 20 videos or something, and you can watch
Right.
them.
So
So I
I'll
thought
be
that'd
able
be
to
kind of
see
cool.
this on the
I
website.
absolutely, yeah, it should be up there in the next hour or two. So
Oh, wow. Very cool. I'll have
yeah,
to share that. I did share it on Facebook and Twitter that I was excited to be doing the interviews. So maybe some people will contact you from that and want to be interviewed too.
that would be awesome. Yeah.
So do you ever miss a day, or do you interview one person every day?
I started the project December 17th, 2019, and I've not missed
Wow.
a day yet.
That's amazing.
Yes,
Wow.
it's
It's a
been
lot of
really really tough. Uh, it's been hard on the family too. They're like, oh,
do you have to interview the family sometimes if you can't find anybody? Like, mom, I'm going to interview you again or whatever.
well, that's also another thing. Never interview the same person twice.
Right.
But
So how do you find someone every day? Like, how do you make sure that you have at least one person every day?
well, before COVID, it was the mall. I could always go
Mm,
to the mall and catch
you
somebody
always
as long
find
as,
people there.
yeah, just go up to people. Um, I do have sort of a backup list, call in case of emergency. That helps.
Oh,
So I do have a couple of people at my house that I'm saving up for later.
right.
So it's like today's your day. It's really desperate. So
Right. I mean, I just think it's so cool. It's really, creative idea. Do you find that most people are excited about space, or do you find a lot of people that are saying, oh, why are we going to space when there's so many problems here? Like,
I, I would say most of the people I talk to are excited about space. I think for several reasons. One is there's like a natural filter, so a lot of people don't want to talk
that's
uh,
true. Yeah.
about it unless they're like really anti-space, in which case that's really interesting.
You've
Uh,
gotten a few of those, right? Yeah.
I have, yeah.
Mhm.
And then the other thing is, I think a lot of people don't care one way or the other, but
That's true. Yeah.
they tend to reflect the enthusiasm of the people around them. So I mean, I could go up to somebody that's in that category, and I'm like, "Hi, what do you think about us going to the moon?" They're like, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be cool." And the next person would be like, "Hey, don't you think going to the moon's a silly idea?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think going to the moon is a silly idea." So I get a
Right.
feeling I could get that too. So
Right. Well, I'm definitely someone, I don't know. I don't think I might not be here if it weren't for space, because my parents went to the Vanderbilt Planetarium for their first date. And so I might not be here if it weren't for space. My father was a space enthusiast. So I guess I got that from him.
that's good. Yeah. Well, Well, I really appreciate your time and thank you so much for talking to me.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure. It was a lot of fun, and good luck with your project. I'm sure it's going to be an incredible success, and best of luck to you.
Okay. Thank you
I'll
so
see you on
much.
Mars.
You
Okay,
bet.
bye.
Bye.